Hey guys, Pitmaster here. Pitmaster and the Doc. We're going to talk about UFC 218 and we're going to talk about the finale. The finale fights were pretty good.
The tough finale.
The tough finale was pretty good, but UFC 218 was very good. So let's dive right in. Let's dive right in right to the top. The main event of 218. Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway. It was a good fight. I don't think it was a great fight. It was too one-sided to be a great fight, but it was slightly competitive, so that made it a good fight. And watching Max Holloway's skill, which has improved greatly, made it a good fight. But what took it away was it just looked like Jose Aldo was a little flat, but I think a lot of that had to do with Max Holloway being super on or super sharp. But it kind of was predictable that Jose Aldo would lose his gas before Max. And he seems to do that quite frequently. I mean, if you remember even when he fought Frankie Edgar, I mean, Frankie Edgar's conditioning kind of throughout the fight even rises a little, like Court McGee does. They start here and they actually get, for some reason, they have a crazy gene and their cardio actually picks up a little. But unfortunately, Jose Aldo's seems to dip even... It seems to dip even more than most fighters. And I don't know why that is. It could be genetic. Some people don't have a chin. Some people, don't have killer instinct. Some people, don't have gas. And no matter how hard I'm sure he trains really hard. He comes from a great camp. But I don't know. Well, I don't know. What do you think? You're a doc. You should know. Why did Jose Aldo gas... I mean, predictably. And the third, he always goes like this. First, second, third.
Has that been his fighting style that you've seen the whole time?
That's
this guy's been around quite a while, which might be part of it. But he was a champion for a long time, wasn't he?
Right. And it was predictable with him. Like when he fought, I don't know all his fights off the top of my head. I'm punch drunk. But I remember for sure when he fought Frankie, everybody was like, if Frankie can hang on, he'll do okay. And sure enough, every time Jose Aldo's conditioning seems to drop a lot quick. Most guys naturally, except for guys like Frankie Edgar and Court McGee, most guys like first round, second round, third round, they have a slow decline, and most guys are hardly anyone is the same in the fifth round as they were in the first, except for Frankie Edgar and Court McGee. I'm sure they would be. But it seems like while most guys slowly decline around the third round, it seems like Jose Aldo takes a huge dip in conditioning. I mean, his conditioning just seems to go, and it doesn't come back. He doesn't seem to get a real second wind. I think he might have in the Frankie Edgar's second fight or something, but never as much as his opponent. He's always at a disadvantage. I don't know why that is.
But they're just like, you can take track and field athletes and you have athletes that can run a marathon and guys that can only sprint 100 yards. So, and their training's different. So, maybe it comes down to training, maybe it comes down to genetics.
I think it would be more genetics. If I had to guess, it's more genetics than training, because I mean, it comes from Nuval, one of the best Nuval, one of the best teams in the world. He's been training long enough. He has great. Andre's a great coach. So I think it's just genetics. Just like you could be training the hell out of a guy, and if he doesn't have a chin, every time he gets tapped on the chin, he's going to go down no matter what. So I think it's genetic. Do you have a medical diagnosis for that? Lack of air?
No, I don't.
Lack of air. We call it lack of air or lack of condition. What would you write as a medical diagnosis for that? There has to be some. There has to be one.
I don't know. We'll have to do some blood tests on him. I don't know. Maybe he's anemic. Maybe he's just trained at altitude. I have no idea.
Maybe it's like his hemoglobin is like 4.
But there are certain genetics that make you better at endurance.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we know Max Holloway has his genetics are definitely they're definitely geared towards speed, power, strength, skill, and conditioning. He has great conditioning. One of the reasons I think his conditioning is so good, he's just so cool. While Jose Aldo like winds up on everything and he tries to knock you out with each punch, Max Holloway just like he's kind of like one of the Diaz brothers in that he just throws them all out there, so you get knocked out more of a accumulation of his punches than just one punch knockout like Jose Aldo has been known to do. But if he doesn't do it, he seems to drop in his conditioning. So it was a good fight.
Overall, good fight, but we saw them fight 6 months ago or whatever.
It was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
So Max Holloway is still the champion, knocked him out in the 3rd round. And it wasn't, I mean,
I will say that the post-fight interview, they interviewed Max, and they were trying to tell him, well, maybe there's an argument that you're the greatest of all time here, and he kind of brushed that aside completely and said, I don't know, we'll see about that. I got a lot left to do. So he's not all full of himself, which
he's not, which is nice to see nowadays.
Nowadays it is.
Yeah, and no, he's not, and he's right. I mean, but most guys, even when they're not the greatest of all times, they'll think they are. They should be in that category. Yeah. But I think he honestly, truly, I know his camp. He's got a really, he has a really level-headed, humble trainer, and so I really don't think he does think he's the best yet. And he's got some proven to do, but he's definitely proven it. Now, speaking of that, we're going to segue into the next fight, which was
Overeem.
Yeah, Overeem and the Predator.
Nagano. Or something.
Yeah.
Close to that. Close to that.
But, man, Nagano, man, he doesn't say a goddamn word. I mean, he doesn't, like, say a negative word. He's an upbeat, friendly, seems like a very respectful guy that just knocks the shit out of people. He hit the guy with a, we call it a fish hook. It's on my YouTube channel, The Pit Online Dojo. He hit him with a fish hook that it knocked out Alistair Overeem in the 1st round. And it was a scary knockout. It was a scary knockout because he was not only out cold, which sometimes they get dropped and they're kind of woozy and the referee stops it, and that's bad enough. They get up on shaky legs, that's bad enough. But he was out, when they're out unconscious and they're like, posturing. I mean, one of the announcers said it looked like he was electrocuted.
Yeah. So yeah, it did. It did look like he was electrocuted. It's scary.
It's scary.
To see, and to see that it's still going on. But posturing is from a pretty significant head injury. So that's a pretty significant traumatic brain injury. I'm sure he was off to get a CT scan.
I hope so.
Immediately after that. So
I hope.
That's scary to see.
It is scary. And I truly believe this. And just like when we had that controversy when Dana wanted Chuck to retire, and I did too, but I also said it's up to the fighter. It's in somebody's heart if they want to keep fighting on it, even if it's dangerous. I mean, you can't make someone not smoke. You can't make someone not eat terribly. And if somebody's getting knocked out too much, if the commission doesn't want to step in, I don't think they should. I really don't think they should. I think it should be up to the fighter. But I would love to see Alistair retire. He's been KO'd a lot of times in the UFC alone.
That wasn't just a KO from a light tap though either. That was a significant strike.
That was some brain damage.
And nobody's chin is going to withstand that.
No, nobody wouldn't get brain damage from that.
Yeah, there's a good argument that that's probably a cumulative injury. The more of those you get.
Yeah, and I think just the way he was knocked out and the way he was posturing and as many times as he's been knocked out, as great as a fighter as he is, and as much as he's proven, he's a huge warrior. All he does is fight. I mean, he fights anyone, anytime, any rules, anywhere. I mean, the guy has been a warrior forever. And he's never been like a big mouth runner. He's just a freaking warrior, and he doesn't care who he fights. He'll fight anyone, but he's fought enough. And after a knockout like that, and he's been knocked out, he's been knocked out too much. And I would love to see him retire. And I think he'll have a good. I'm sure he has a good retirement and saved up, and he'd be a great trainer, he'd be a great announcer or a great commentary guy, because the guy speaks so well, and he's such a well-spoken guy. He speaks perfect English. I guess I don't. And he's from Holland, but he has like no accent. He has like he speaks perfect English, and he knows everything about fighting, and I'd love him. I'd love to see him on the other side of the camera. I would love for him to not fight again. So if you're watching this, Alistair, you're a warrior. You're a great fighter. You've been there, done that, proven everything. You got nothing left to prove. Please don't fight anymore. Go on the other side of the camera. Start doing announcing, commentating. I think you'd be a great commentator, or whatever, coach, or whatever you want to do. I think it's time to take that next step. Take your life to the next level. Please. I'm begging you. But anyway, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just see how he feels and how he comes back from that. But
I think
it's just hard to see. But
it's hard to see.
Like I said, I don't think it's. You're like, oh, he took a hit and he went down. He took a hit that anyone would have gone down.
That proves my point even more. That just means there's more brain damage.
It does, but it also means that, I don't know, you can't say that he's a fragile fighter or that he's going to get knocked out easily.
He's not a fragile fighter, but he's been knocked out. Can you bring up his record? If you bring up his record, I mean, I think he's been knocked out each fight. I think he's been knocked out something like 10 or 11 times just in the UFC. So, I mean, I just don't like to see that, And he's been knocked out in K1. And that's nothing against him. He's a fighter. Fighters get knocked out, He's also has plenty of knockout wins.
Yeah, his last loss was to Stipe, was a knockout.
Yeah. I mean, he has a lot of knockout losses. So, I don't think he has that fight proved he has a glass jaw. I don't think he has a glass jaw at all. But he's been knocked out a lot. He's a heavyweight fighter, for God's sakes, fighting the best fighters on the planet. He knocks them out or they knock him out. And that usually happens. So I would love to see him retire. All right.
Both these guys are big guys, too. They're both 6'4", huge heavyweights.
Yeah.
Athletic heavyweights.
Yeah, they really are. And so who else we got? We got Cejudo against Pettis. That was a really boring fight, but nothing against either one. I think their styles together made for a boring fight.
I would agree with that. It was style mismatch or...
Yeah, you just never know, because you just don't know. And it's a luck of the draw, and those two just did not put on a good fight. I mean, they tried to, and they're both so good. If Pettis wasn't as good as he is, he would have got submitted. He
defended pretty well on the ground.
He did, and that's one of the things that made it so boring. He nullified Cejudo's attacks from the bottom, but Sahuto is so good. He's a gold medal wrestler, so he's so good at controlling people's bodies that Pettis wasn't able to get up, and he was able to take Pettis down enough. So it just made for a boring fight. I think both these guys are just so good. They should just fight someone else, and it'll be more like Cejudo's last fight was more competitive or better, and so was Pettis. So not a very exciting fight, but they're both really good. The next fight, however, one fight of the night, so they both got $50,000. It was competitive, and it was an absolute brawl between Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje. I think Alvarez is a much better fighter, well-rounded fighter. I think Gaethje, who was a Olympic level wrestler, is not a very good striker, but he's a very willing striker. So I think he needs to come to me, and I'll teach him some left hooks.
What'd you think of his defense, Gaethje? It was interesting.
He has no defense.
Well, he just puts his hands up.
He has no defense, right? When I teach my fighters, either hit, hold, or get out of the way. Don't cover up. This is not a defense, guys. You're either hitting, holding, or getting the hell out of the way. This is not a defense. Unless you're a Muhammad Ali laying back on the ropes in rope-a-dope, it's not a defense. But he has a heart of Arturo Gatti. Both of them do. And both of them don't care about winning as much as they care about having a reputation of being the most violent fighters in the 155-pound class. So
that was the fight of the night. There were two.
Yeah.
Two fight of the nights.
Yeah.
But all right. So the next fight was the.
Anyway, so Gaethje gets stopped in the third round with a brutal knee, after they went back and forth. But Alvarez was starting to come on a little more. His striking was a lot sharper, and he was catching Gaethje more. And then that knee stopped Gaethje, put him to sleep. So then then there's one more in the main card, and that was Michelle Waterson and Tisha Torres. Tisha Torres, I think, is a stronger fighter, and that's why she won. To me, it wasn't that good of a fight. It wasn't interesting enough. I don't know why I'm saying that. It was a good fight, but it just didn't get me. It didn't get me going because it was very technique oriented, where Tisha was using her power and boxing ability and winning, even though Waterson is, karate hottie and she has great kicks and stuff. I think Tisha was just running her down with more solid punches and more solid techniques. And it was a decision, and Waterson did really well. She got her down, I think, in the first round and won the first round because she finally got her down and held her in some precarious positions. But I don't know why. It should have been a better fight, and maybe it was. I don't know why I wasn't that into it. Were you?
No, but I don't know. They both went the distance,
and they're both great. I think another fight where both of them are so good that they just kind of nullified each other's really good skills. So, yeah, not that great. But then the prelims now, boom. We got. Let's go right to. We got Yancy Medeiros against the Cowboy Oliveira, which was the second fight of the night. I don't know if UFC's ever done that before, but they awarded 2 fight of the nights.
What do these guys get for fight of the night? For putting on a show.
Usually $50K each, sometimes 60.
So even you lose, you still get $50K for that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they both. Fight of the night, both guys get it. This fight started off with just fucking explosion. I think Yancy dropped him with like a freaking brutal something and broke his nose, and then Alex turned around and dropped Yancy, and it was just like this back and forth battle that lasted into the third round, where Yancy just finished him off with what did he catch him with? An elbow, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember what finally finished
I think
him off, but he had a broken nose from the first round.
He had a broken nose.
So from the fight medicine,
like the first punch.
From the fight medicine point of view, the thing that interested me was as soon as he got his nose broken, you heard his corner saying, "Don't blow your nose," and so John and I talked about that a little bit. But that's something he's experienced. But when you blow your nose and your nose is broken, all that air is going to go into your orbital socket and swells up your eye pretty badly, which is well known to fighters. You've had experience with that?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with it, and I've had experience on both sides. So when my guys have any kind of broken or bloody nose, I always tell them, because they always want to come back and blow it.
The first thing you'd want to do is blow your nose out.
You want to get the blood out. So you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let it drip, and the trainer's supposed to like kind of milk it down, and it hurts like hell. But yeah, blowing your nose, like if you do that, you feel the back pressure, and that back pressure goes into the the sinus cavities, which are already broken in your nose, so it leaks through your sinus cavities really close to the skin, and it just blows out your eyes, like you've seen happen to Alvarez a couple fights ago. So he fought with a hampered. He was fighting with hampered because he had a freaking bloody nose, and that really affects your conditioning because you can't breathe out of your nose. Watching blood drop out of your nose or anywhere, it usually affects you in a negative way because people don't like to see their own blood. They like to see other people's blood. So watching your own nose bleed is
just feeling like it isn't stopping. Just
it's not gonna stop.
And then you keep getting hit.
And it hurts.
Sounds
like
miserable.
It hurts like hell. Your eyes water, and it just hurts like. I remember I broke my nose once so bad in training.
You broken your nose?
Whatever. I broke my nose once so bad in training. I used to have a Jewish nose. I'm actually Jewish. I had like a straight up like beak, but this is after I had repair after my career. But anyway, I broke it in training, and I couldn't afford to get it fixed, and I had a fight coming up in like a week. And I kept training. I go to sleep every night, and I wake up with blood on my pillow. I mean, it was like, it was a nightmare. And it hurt so bad when I was training, and I could not train for that fight. And we didn't have those kind of...
like a shield.
We didn't have those days. I just had to spar. I had to train. It hurt so much just to touch it. This poor guy. So I can imagine what it felt like. And they were both cut. They were both bleeding. And... it was a brutal back and forth battle that proved a couple things. Number one, they're both top of the line fighters that belong in the top 10. Number two, they are both tough as nails. They're like John Gotti, both of them. John Gotti, Arturo Gatti. Each one of them is like Arturo Gatti. And they have skills. And they have heart. It was a great fight. So I love watching that fight. That was probably my best fight of the night. And then there was Felder against the other Oliveira, Charles, which was a good fight. It wasn't great. I think it was stopped in the second round, wasn't it?
Yeah, second round TKO.
Yeah. Charles won most of the first round. He got a really brutal Darce choke on Paul, and Paul was able to fight it. He stayed cool. He was able to fight his way out of it. And then the second round, it was kind of weird because he got him against the cage, and he was on the ground, and he hit him with an elbow, and Charles tapped immediately. But he tapped his shoulder, and the referee was on the other side and didn't see it. And so Paul didn't think he should stop. Because, if he stopped and then the referee didn't see it and then they stood him up or whatever and he lost, you don't stop usually for that. So anyway, he caught him with another elbow, like three more, and then the referee stopped it. So it was Paul Felder, he's coming out of Duke Rufus's gym, Rufus Sport. He's getting a lot of good fighters out of that gym, and they're well-rounded. Duke Rufus's fighters are not just stand-up guys, because Duke himself was a K1 fighter. They're also unbelievable on the ground. They're really good at takedowns, takedown defense, and they have beautiful submission and submission defense. So that's a camp that's definitely coming up. What else we got?
Well, that was pretty much it for those fights. There was one fight I watched the night before, which was part of the Ultimate Finale.
Yeah,
or the Ultimate Fighter finale. There were a couple. I think you got them on your thing there.
Yeah. Well, one of them was Eric Spicely and Gerald Mearchart, who Gerald Mearchart is actually from Duke Rufus's camp. He's getting some good guys. Eric Spicely is the grappler. Gerald was the striker, and Eric was able to take him down a couple times and get some positioning. But Gerald stood it right back up. And Gerald is a southpaw, and southpaws have an advantage over orthodox fighters when it comes to liver shots, especially liver kicks. And he kicked him like twice in the liver, and you could tell Gerald just dropped his elbow, and you could tell it really hurt. But then he kind of moved the wrong way, and he moved into Gerald's power, and Gerald threw a liver kick and just dropped him. Fight was over. I mean, bing! Fight was over.
He got dropped, and the ref jumped on him to stop the fight.
I don't know who the ref was for that fight, but anyone that's been around fighting for any length of time knows a liver shot like that, fight's over. I mean, that it hurts more than, and I know that firsthand. I've been hitting the liver where you're awake. It's like being on Pavilon. If you guys ever been on Pavilon, curare. No? Acetylcholine? Probably not. Anyway, what it is, it's a neuro paralysis drug. So, neuromuscular. So, what it does is it everything is paralyzed, but your mind is still working. So, it's kind of weird because, like, if you give someone that in the ER to do a procedure on them, they're completely... looks like they're comatose, but their mind is still 100%. So you don't even think that way. So sometimes you might forget to like they feel pain, but they can't show it. So that's how it feels to get hit in the liver, except it hurts like somebody stabbing your liver, but you're paralyzed at the same time. There's nothing you can do. You can't get up. You don't want to breathe because when you breathe, it hurts even more. But you have to breathe because we all breathe. So it's probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. Yeah, it hurt. So it was stopped.
So you do see those occasionally, not as often as a knockout to the head, but knockout to the body.
I think that's the number 2 weapon of choice in a sport fight. I think it would be chin first, liver second. Speaking of liver, we got Sean OMalley against Tehran Ware. And it was an interesting fight, and it was an entertaining fight.
It was a hyped fight.
Yeah, it was really hyped a lot. And Sean OMalley, I think he lived up to the hype. He fought a guy, Tehran Ware. I'm not sure what his record is. But he definitely came with some skills, but he looked like he was just a little below Sean OMalley's skills. And Sean OMalley is very flamboyant, and he comes out with some really electric and dynamic techniques. Not all of them are really effective, but they're
less predictable.
No, and that's what makes them effective. Is even if they're not landing, they look good, and they do catch the audience and the judges' eyes. And he's really fast. He had unbelievable speed. He outsped his opponent the whole fight, and he had really non-traditional techniques. So he's an up-and-comer.
He did look a little gassed in the second round, but then he came back. In the third round, he looked better.
He got a second wind. I wish Jose Aldo would get a second wind.
Well,
more often.
and going back, I think I saw medical suspension on him for 6 months for a broken hand and a broken foot. So that might have been, I don't know, something to do with round 2.
Could have been.
So he hit a broken hand and foot in that fight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so he's a really dynamic fighter. He kind of reminded me a little bit of
who? Gage?
No, Sage Northcutt.
Yeah.
He was a little Sage Northcutt-ish.
But he's also the opposite of
his personality. He was more of a mouthy guy. Sage was like, Mr. Rogan, I love you. How are you? You're great. A very respectful guy, and I think that's really him. I really do.
And Sean OMalley's whole persona is around smoking weed. So.
Yeah, he's a little different. I don't think he's as good for the sport. So I don't know. We're gonna see where he goes next.
I was excited to see him fight. After seeing his fight, he fought in something to get into the UFC, which is televised and hyped.
Yeah, it's find a fighter or whatever. It's where Dana goes around and finds fighters in smaller shows and says, "All right, you're good. You're coming in the UFC." Kind of like the opposite of Trump in his show when he goes, "You're fired." Dana goes around and says, "You're hired."
Okay. Yeah.
I just made that up right now.
Right on the spot.
Right on the
It's
spot.
almost unbelievable.
I did.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the last fight I saw on that day.
That's all we got to talk about. It was good fights. Please retire, Alistair. I think you're one of the greatest fighters ever. I think you've proven so much, and you're such a warrior. I don't want to see you fight anymore. I don't want to see you get hurt. You got so much skill, so much talent. You have such a personality. I think you're going to be a great announcer or commentator or trainer or something. So, anyway, please don't fight anymore. That knockout scared the shit out of me. It really did.
I think that's great advice, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. So I think if anyone has any questions about fight medicine, ask them so we'll address something on each show. But I think like this week, just something that happens in the fights, we'll talk about it, broken nose stuff or whatever happens. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about fight medicine or stuff these guys have to deal with medically, ask it. I
am a nurse.
Ask it in the comments.
I am a nurse.
John will be happy to answer it.
I'm a registered nurse. Sometimes he can be a little snobby. No, it's condescending because, oh, you're a nurse. You didn't do that you didn't do the MD thing, huh? Okay, I'm an RN. Does the RN, is it higher or lower than a MD? It's a different, no? Too much?
It's different.
It's, whatever.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
That's agreement.
You're being condescending. Anyway, all right, brother. Thanks for coming. See you guys.
All right.
Let's do the show.
I think we're live.
All right. We on that too? All right. How long?
I don't know. Let's see. It's 976 bars. Whatever the hell that means.